Well, hey there, if you're like me, maybe you are realizing that June is right around the corner. That means that summer is right around the corner, which also means that my Simplify Your Summer Online Summit is also right around the corner. We start on Tuesday. Registration is free. Grab your free pass at simplifyyoursummer.com. You are going to be hearing from 30 different experts talking about all kinds of things that women and moms are struggling and need help with every single day. And this year we have a brand new category. We've got a category for motherhood and working moms. Well, today on this episode of the Intentional Mom podcast, we are talking with one of our speakers who you will hear in the summit. We're going to be talking with Erin Leonard, and we're going to be talking all about morning routines. You're going to want to tune in for this one because a solid morning routine will help you start your day off well, which will set you out on the correct trajectory every single day. Make sure that you grab your free pass for the summit. Again, we start Tuesday the 28th at simplifyyoursummer.com. We'll see you in the summit, and make sure that you are listening to this episode with Erin. Our most loved episodes here on the Intentional Mom podcast are with our guest speakers, and Erin is just a joy. So make sure you tune in for this conversation I had with Erin last year for our summer summit. And again, you will hear her this year with talking about how to be less busy and more present. Yep, sign me up for that one. Let's talk morning routines. Here we go.
Well, hey there, I am Jennifer Roskamp, a certified life coach and homeschool mom of 9 who is passionate about helping women just like you embrace the here and now while also being focused on creating the life you actually want. In reality, it's not about thinking life will get so much better or so much easier when you fill in the blank. Let's work on creating a life you love now. So let's dive in and get started on redefining Supermom to be someone who is present, intentional, and content rather than perfect in our homes, in our lives, and in our own skin. Let's get started. This is the Intentional Mom Podcast.
Welcome, Erin. I'm so excited that you are here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah. So first, can you tell us, we know your kids are 5 to 12. Can you just tell us just a little bit about them, maybe a little bit of what summers look like?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. So yeah, my oldest is 12. His name is Ethan. And what's been interesting about this year is, well, I guess summer, nobody will be in school. I'm actually looking forward to summer. I used to not look forward to summer as much because it was just such a juggling act with childcare and little ones and just trying to, blend everything together. But this year, so 12, 9, and 5, they're in 3 different schools. So my school day is getting people to school from 7:20 to 9:30. And then getting people home from school from 1:30 to 4:30. And that's a huge chunk of my day. So I'm actually looking forward to summer because I don't have to be 3 places in the morning. Not that I only have to take one of them to school, but the other 2, it feels like I'm in 3 directions, let's say, instead of 3 places. So I'm looking forward to summer. My 12-year-old is Ethan. My 9-year-old is Keely. She's in 4th grade. 12 is 6th grade. Here we start middle school in 5th grade. So he's in middle school. She's in elementary school. This is her last year of elementary school. And then my 5-year-old is in preschool and she'll move to kindergarten next year. So next year I'll only have 2 schools. But given that the age span, it steps pretty well, but it does have me in different directions. And I know that we're going to be talking about some routines today. So it does make it necessary for me to have some routines in place so that I can have some independent working going on so that I'm not just facilitating people getting to where they need to be every second of the day. Traffic control. Yes, there's a lot of traffic control. I'm doing stuff a little bit with that. But yeah, they're great. My son loves baseball. My middle daughter loves gymnastics. My youngest loves really anything at this point, but probably gymnastics and t-ball the most. They keep me busy like every other mom. And like we've already said, lots of different directions, all the stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that you bring like being pulled in all those different directions, because that is one of the things to love about summer is that for most of us, it can be a little bit more of a laid back time. But in my home, I know I still find routines to be helpful even during the summer. And it sounds like you probably agree with that. And then I would also imagine my next question, if that kind of piggybacks off that one, is do you think that creating summer routine for us moms is helpful also? So you kind of have your routine for during the school year. Do you find one for yourself helpful for the summer? And then what does that kind of look like for you?
Yeah. Yes, we definitely have, what we would call routines. And I think one of the things about routines is people can kind of view them in different ways, right? Here, my younger self kind of viewed a routine as like something you had to do and you had to do it exactly the same way every day. And if you didn't do it the exact same way every day, it wasn't a routine or maybe it wasn't worth it. I think I probably used routines in that way for myself before I had kids. And after, research and reading and having children, my own personal definition of routines has graduated a bit, I would say. I don't really view them as like kind of like stuffy and confining anymore. It's almost more like we can actually have more freedom if we have a routine in place because you can use them in a couple different ways. But, one of the main ways I use them with my kids is to just make it possible to move from one thing to the next. So, like, in order to get from here to here, these things have to be done first. And you can do them in this order if you want. It doesn't really matter to me. They just have to get done. And doing them in order isn't as important as just not needing reminders to do them. So if doing them in order means you need less reminders to do them, then let's do them in order. And then we can move to the next part of our day. I think I kind of think the other way we use a routine is so that we can get to things in a day that we would typically put on the back burner. So, like for my kids, I'm using them more for time management and independence. And for myself, I use them more so that I can get to the things in a day that I would otherwise push to the back burner for other people's needs. My kids get to the things in a day they want to get to.
Yeah.
I don't always. So I think that's why their routine is important for moms.
Yeah,
And
I love how you say that because it is so hard for us as moms to find that balance. And by balance, I don't necessarily mean equal, but it's hard for us to find that balance between being there for our kids, especially during the summer since they're home with us more, but not losing ourselves too. And so it's kind of like you say, where you've graduated into that, where I think having the right mindset is really helpful for us when we come to thinking about creating a morning routine for maybe those moms who are out there who it is a new idea for. But I think it's really helpful to have that mindset. So can you offer maybe a little bit of guidance on how we can get in that right mindset where we almost need to, I feel like we almost need to give ourselves permission to pay attention to our needs as well. That's exactly what you said. Like, how can we kind of make that? I feel like there's like a mental shift.
yeah, there is definitely a mental shift. I think the more, like anything else, take time to practice, but the more you practice, the more it feels like this is the right thing to do. Or the more you hear other moms saying it's what they do, or just giving you a picture or a snapshot into their life about what it actually looks like in real life. I think that helps too. But I think we certainly need permission to say, this is what's important to me. This is as I kind of look at the as a on a routine as an ideal. This ideally is what I would like to do to start off my day. Let's just say we're talking about a morning routine. Ideally, this is what I'd like to do. And I'm going to be able to do this every day. No, someone's going to get sick. I'm going to have a late night, so I'm going to want to sleep in a little bit. My work schedule might change. Somebody might need to get to school early. It's certainly not going to happen every day. But like, here's the good starting place. This routine is a good starting place.
Yeah.
The more I can get done of this, the better. And same for my kids. And one of the things I feel like that works well for permission is when I can say, like, this is your routine for the morning. My kids have like, wake up, they have a chore that they need to do each day of the week. It's like a certain chore that they do. And this is not what other people's routines have to look like per se, but I sat down and wrote out what I needed to be done before they left for the day for school so that our house was set up so that I could continue to work in it and function while they're gone and then welcome them back, right? So, oh, sorry if it's noisy. It will be noisy here. This is real life. Macbeth's going outside the window if you're hearing it. I'm sorry.
I can't.
Well, that's great. And this is all working out. I think part of the permission comes when I say to them, like, here's my routine on this piece of paper. This is what I have decided is important for me in the morning to be a better person, a better mom. And just because I like to do it, here's yours. They're next to each other. We both have them. My permission is equal to your permission. And when it's like we're all doing this,
Yeah.
I think it'll help my kids when they get older to not need permission because they've been doing it all along and they saw me do it or my husband do it. I think that that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the permission thing is tricky. It's tricky for moms on lots of things.
Yeah. But just even hearing you and I say, like, and I think what's important to remember too is we feel like it only benefits us. But what we know to be true is it benefits our people too. I mean, we can feel like we're only doing it because because theoretically it mostly involves us. We feel like, yeah, we feel like we're the only one getting the benefit. And so sometimes we can get into our heads and feel like we're being selfish, right? But again, we can only pour from that empty cup for so long. And that's going to be the point where we can't serve our people. We can't bring our best. Like, can anybody bring them their best to any situation when they're just like pulling themselves along and dragging themselves along, right? Like it's and sometimes I think to help remember, like it isn't only me getting the benefit that can help. So if a mom is like kind of new to this morning routine idea in the summer, again, because there's so much other stuff, like I don't even know where to start because of just all the things that are summer. Where should we start? How would we know maybe what a few things to start with to put on a morning routine?
Okay, yeah, I have some steps because I feel like steps are always helpful.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, good. Step one is always just like write down what you would what would be ideal for you to start off your day. So some people prefer to wake up and work out. On my list is wake up slowly. Like I don't want to have to wake up fast and jump into anything really fast. Sometimes I have to wake up fast and jump into things fast. This is not saying that like that never happens. It probably still happens 50% of the time. But ideally, I want to wake up slowly. I want to have a cup of coffee and I want to read something interesting before I have to jump into the day. Do I get to do that every day? No. But when we write it down, it's kind of like naming what matters for ourselves, right? Maybe you want to grocery shop before anyone gets up, or often we're doing our routines. That's the other thing. Our routines don't have to happen when it's like all the way quiet and everything is like all the way calm, because then again, like you were saying, you would never get to it, right? So step one is to just write down your ideals, right? You're not going to get to all the things you write down, but just write them down, at least for now. What does the perfect morning look like for you? And what does the perfect morning look like for your kids? And you can get their input on that. That would be a separate list. Or it can just be like, I need you to do these things for the rest of our day to run well. And if we get to them, it's great. If we don't get to them, it's just like the rest of our day is going to be a little off. That's going to happen. But again, the routine is like the reset, kind of like the ideal. After you write out your things, and a lot of times, one thing, let's say, working out, or okay, let's say waking up for your kids. Let's say that's ideal to you. Well, on step two, you're going to learn like sometimes some of those things you want to do have mini steps, right? So like if you want to wake up before your kids, maybe you need to go to bed a little earlier, or so that you can wake up earlier. Like these things, what happens is we write them down and then we're like, I don't know why I can't get this to work. And it's like, well, I mean, I get it, but like it's not working because each of these things takes a little bit of tweaking here or there.
Yeah.
If you want to work out, maybe you need to set out your things the night before. Is that hard to do the night before? Yes, all of it is going to take a little bit of practice, right? But that's step two. So step one, write everything down. Step two, write the mini steps that might be necessary to make some of those larger things happen. And do this all as uncomplicated as possible.
Yeah.
we tend to overcomplicate things. So I actually have a step for that in a second because I am an overcomplicator. Just
Yeah.
ask anyone in my family. So I'm always trying to simplify things because I know I overcomplicate them. So then step 3 would just be to put them in order. Like, what order would make sense? You can do it for yourself and you can do it for your kids. A better example for kids is like, well, sure, you can get dressed before you eat breakfast. I don't really care. It all has to happen by this certain time, but you eat pancakes a lot for breakfast, and that syrup gets on your shirt and in your hair. So it might make sense. I sometimes let them decide, but I just talk it out. Like, it might make sense to get dressed and have your hair done before you eat breakfast, because that might save you time later, like changing your shirt or like tangles that hurts to have syrup in your hair. Talking through with your kids too, like sometimes the order doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does, you know? So write them all down, write down the mini steps, put them in order.
Yeah.
And then step 4 is to take a few things off your list.
I love that.
Because if you've never written a routine before or really kind of thought it through intentionally from start to finish, that's the other thing. We all do routines, right? Like at night, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, I read, I go to bed. I never wrote that down. I never sat down and said, what do I need to do before bed, right? You don't always have to sit down and do these steps. Some routines happen naturally because they just make sense. But some routines have to be more intentional. And if you're looking for your summer to be a certain way, you might need to be intentional about the way that you start your day. Maybe not every day, but maybe on some.
Yeah.
And if you're new to routines, you might get really excited about your new routine. I've done this before, and write down like 40 things you're going to get to. Because it feels so great. Like you're going to get in this routine. All these things are going to be done before such and such time. And then you're going to have time for the things that matter. That's all well and good. But most likely you won't get to the 40 things. And then you'll just decide the routines don't work.
Yep.
And then it'll go in that bucket of like things I tried that don't actually work.
Yeah. Don't you find that almost every time there's something that falls into that category, it's because we've overcomplicated it?
Yes. I mean, yes, as I said, I overcomplicate a lot. So I think the reason my brain like does step by step well is because it's the only way that I can kind of simplify things for myself. It's not necessarily the way my brain works. It's more like a reaction to the way my brain works is to like think, okay, let's simplify this, because naturally I kind of will fill up a space or a block of time with as many things as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, are there certain things that we should avoid? But I feel like we've already talked that through, and like avoid overcomplicating it, avoid over planning, avoid over scheduling ours. Anything else?
Yep.
Is there anything else we should avoid?
Well, I think one thing that's important is that, especially for kids, there's more of a step 5. Like for adults, we can maybe stop at step 4. Step 5 is to kind of write it down as a checklist. You don't really maybe need that as an adult unless you're like me. I love paper and pencil and pretty things and checking things off. I would make that list as pretty as possible. But if making it pretty is going to keep you from doing it, just get a pencil and a piece of paper and just write it down.
Yeah.
But it does allow you to say, like, this is mine and this is yours for yourself and your kids, And then for kids, writing it down is key. Like the checklist is key.
Yeah.
It really only will happen the way that you've talked about it happening if it's written down and there's a checklist. And I know that there are going to be people that say, my kids don't operate well on a checklist, and that's, kind of rigid or confining. And I actually understand all of those things. What I've learned about routines and kids, I learned from the classroom as a teacher. And there's not a successful teacher on this planet that doesn't operate on routines and systems because they work. She also has probably more children to be managed in her classroom than you have in your home.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would write a schedule up on the board. I luckily learned this before I had kids. It was one of the best lessons.
Yeah.
I wrote a schedule up on the board, thought, oh, this is cute and pretty. And also, I like to operate on schedule. And we had to write, the standards up on the board that we were going to cover for the day.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was just somewhat helpful until the first day I forgot to put it up on the board and, immediately had how many questions about, well, what are we doing? Well, when does that happen? Well, what's for lunch? And are we not, as much as we want kids to be curious and, not be too confined or constricted into being a certain way at a certain time, that's what I said in the beginning. Your routines give them freedom to say, okay, that's what's happening now. Let me have some freedom to work within this framework. I've just never had, my own kids are very different. I could tell you about those if we know enough time. My own kids are very different. And back to the checklist thing, my middle child you would call laid back. She is laid back. Doesn't know what time it is, and that's okay with her. She's 9. I do need to teach her time management skills. You would think she would be my child that would balk at a checklist. Like, not gonna do it. That's not my style. She loves the most. And my oldest, who's disciplined, kind of an achiever, sets his own goals and just they're in his head. He's got a writing list in his head all the time. Doesn't really need a checklist. He has a checklist, so his checklist is more like a medal. Like, this is what I got done today. Her checklist is like, oh, thank God, I'm not good at this. So this is really helping me move through these things.
Focus.
And then my youngest, who has another personality, as always happens with your kids, right? Hers is like, she'll do the first couple things, and those will spur her. Like, I'll walk in the room, and it was just like, make your bed and organize your books. And she's like, her stuffed animals are organized, and she picked out her outfit for the week. She's 5. And I'm like, this is like your springboard. And the other kids don't use it in that way. So I don't think that it's that checklists don't work for certain kids. I think it's just they work in different ways for different kids.
Well, and adult too. Like, I mean,
True.
so many different personalities as adults. Like, I sometimes waver. I mean, I am all about a checklist, and I'm all about a list and making a list and kind of planning it that way. But I will say, I sometimes will find it refreshing to throw kind of that tool out the window and say, I'm just going to make it a contest with myself to see how many things I can complete. And I write them down after I complete them, right? Like, it's kind of like a backwards checklist.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's one of those things where, like, as we're talking about routines, we're really just trying to move from one thing to the next, or find a way to fit the things into the day that we want to do. And this is like, just once you do the steps and then you're at step 5 and you practice this for a while, it's like anything else. Like, it's here for you. When you want to return to the checklist, it's there. If you're remembering the things on your own, you're not arguing, and I'm not needing to dish out reminders, and you're doing your thing while I'm getting to the time that I kind of set aside for myself. That's fine. But like, the second we get off, it's like, remember this? We're gonna go back to this, because the next part of our day isn't working all anymore, because the first part we've gotten a little laid back, lazy on, which is fine. That happens all the time, almost every week.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about for the moms out there who want a morning routine, but her kids get up at the crack of dawn? Does a morning routine, I think we think about routines as a morning routine as it has to be the first thing I do when I get up, and like, so what is a mom who would love to have that, but she's like, I can't because my kids get up whatever time?
Yeah. The first thing I would say to that is, like, there's just different seasons for different things, right? There are times where I have woken up. Right now, I wake up before my kids wake up. It works for me right now. I wake up at 5. My first young wakes up at 6:20. If I decide to wake up a little later, I just know I'm not going to get to the things that set my day up for the best day it can be. Is my day still going to be fine? Yes. But, I just didn't get to those things. So maybe the routine isn't right when you wake up. Maybe it's during that first nap time. Maybe you have a certain something for your child to do during that time. Maybe you make something easier on yourself, like breakfast is cereal and everyone can reach it. And even my 3-year-old gets to make their own cereal bowl for the day.
Yeah.
That's okay. Maybe cereal doesn't have milk on it because that's the messy part. And so if you're able to get in your prayer time, your workout, your reading, your text with your mom, whatever it is you want to do, and you have to run the backbeat for 5 minutes for some cereal, there's usually maybe price to pay, especially when your kids are smaller, for getting that time in for yourself. But you'll probably be in a better mood as you're vacuuming up that cereal than if you hadn't gotten to those few things that you wanted to do. Your routine's not always going to work the same way. During the pandemic, I slept. I got to sleep because my kids were doing school at home. It was the first time since I had a baby 12 years ago that I didn't have to be woken up by that child super early or have to get everybody off to school. So I didn't wake up for my kids. I slept and figured out another time to do it.
Yeah, make it work for you, right? Like that's
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a certain way. And if you don't get to everything on the list, all is not lost. Routines still work. There's still a way to fit things in that you don't get to. There's still a way to move from here to there. They just don't have to look the same way every day. And they don't have to look the same way every season, which we're kind of talking about, right? Like our school routine is not the same as our summer routine.
Yeah.
And what motivates my kids to get done with what I think should be in their routine is different in the school year than in the summer. Like in the summer, they love to watch a show in the morning. Great. You can turn on a show as soon as your bed is made and your one chore is done. Somebody else you might not care if your kids' beds are made. That's okay. I just want to walk down my way upstairs and at least see people's beds made.
Yeah. So
What matters to me might not matter to you.
yeah, so that's why your step 1 makes so much sense because it's identifying what is valuable to you, what does matter
Yeah.
to you. Because
Yeah. And maybe to your point, what works in this season.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like maybe what you and I can do, you can do is I feel like we have to come up with a definition that sounds stuffy. So I use that word loosely, but what does it mean if it works? How can we define? Because I feel like perfection, only if I feel like that's where most of our minds would go is that this only works. I'm only successful in this if it goes exactly the way. So what is a morning routine that works? How can we kind of describe that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think so. I think a routine is trying to set you up for something you don't want, I guess. It's a good way to say it. So for me, I don't like to be rushed. I'm rushed all the time. I just don't like it. So in my step 1, when I defined what I needed, it was I don't want to feel rushed and I don't want to have to take the crown away. Right. So I would like to get up slowly, get up before my kids, have a cup of coffee and read something interesting.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't accomplish all of that. But, and I oversleep or for whatever reason, a child gets up earlier than I thought they were going to get up, right? What can I still do? My end goal is to not feel rushed. So what is yours? What is the point? Don't have a routine for routine's sake, right?
Right.
Why are you having your routine? My kids' routine in the morning is so that we can get to the bus on time. And so that when they leave, I can jump into working. I work from home and I work better. I personally work better without a lot of things out and around. I feel the need to pick them up if they're out. So the purpose of their routine is to get to the bus on time. halfway skipped up so I don't feel like I have to do it when they leave. So I can get a lot done. So when they come home, I can hang out with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I think everyone could probably name the purpose of their routine. And then it worked if you didn't feel rushed. And it didn't work if you do. It doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah.
Like there's mornings where I have to get the ground running. And they're just not my favorite mornings.
Yeah.
My day still goes on. My
Yep.
afternoon might still be great. It's just that the routine didn't accomplish that for that morning. Usually it's because it's something I did, so usually it's because I overslept
Yeah.
or made a choice to sleep later. And then it's like, hey, I'm choosing to sleep later, which means my morning had to be rushed.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like it. And that's what you're talking about right there is what I always try to stress also is that we want to be able to make an intentional choice, right? You say, I'm choosing to or maybe even last night, I'm choosing to stay up later, knowing that it's going to throw my morning off a little bit, but it's still then because we have the routine in place, it then becomes like you're talking about that intentional choice. It gives us the opportunity to make more intentional choices. And so that's really like, are you able to, do you feel like you're making some intentional choices? I guess that's kind of how I would think about a morning routine working is, do I feel like I'm making some intentional choices here? Because I think if we don't have one, we probably don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of like, what's the angle? You know, what are we trying to move to? In the summer, my kids want to watch a show, and we live in one of those neighborhoods where like somebody's always knocking on the door, like, "Can you play?" So, they want to be able to say yes when someone comes to the door to ask if they can play. I mean, sometimes it's like 8:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not till 10. But like, they can say the like house in our family, you may go play when these things are done.
Yeah.
So they want to be able to say yes to playing. And I explained to them, like, you can't say yes to play and rush out the door and your breakfast things are out and your bed's not made because that makes me feel like I need to do them because I personally need things straightened up. This is just everyone is different. And so this has to be done for you to move to that. And so it's all intentional. And it on the front, on the front side of it all might take a little bit of a half an hour sit down, and then practicing it with your kids. But then it saves you time.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it's going to feel like more time. That's how most things are, right? But then it saves you time.
Yeah. Yeah. So for a mom who's out there and is saying, yes, I know that I need this morning routine for the summer. The very first thing would be maybe thinking about what she's trying to accomplish then, the purpose. What purpose would you want your morning routine?
Yeah.
Is that maybe the fair? Because I always like to say, like, what's a quick action tip? Like, yes, I'm inspired. Now tell me what to do right now so I can set it into motion. Is that the thing to do?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm like, I need a morning routine because I need to get to work on time. It can be really simple. I need a morning routine because we want to get to the pool at 9 o'clock. I need a morning routine because I have to take you to daycare at 7:30. I need a morning routine just so I don't feel like you're sitting on the couch all day watching TV. Whatever it is, it can't have to be like super worthwhile. It can really be like, I need a morning routine because I don't want to feel like I'm cleaning up after you all summer. It can be a million different things.
Yeah.
And then you're almost working backwards from there. Like, okay, well, what needs to happen for that to happen? How can I put those in order? Maybe take a couple of things off the list, make a checklist and try it out. The first week, you're going to be changing things.
Correct. Tweaking and saying, what if this is working? What if this isn't? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome.